I hope you guys are doing good and having fun so far. So we wanted to introduce this topic to you. Hopefully this is something that you're going to hear a lot of throughout the whole time that you're here, but it's definitely something that we want to give you an introduction. So let me tell you, if you don't know who I am. My name is Caitlin Shetler. I'm the director of the Access Program for Students with Disabilities, and I'm also teaching a section of Lipscomb Experience. So.
My name is Randy Spivey. I'm the director of the Fred Gray Institute for Law, Justice, and Society here at Lipscomb. So I'm a faculty member. I'm teaching a Lipscomb Experience class as well, and then classes within the major. And Caitlin and I are both on the Title IX team that is kind of housed in risk management. Mm-hmm. So most of you have probably heard of Title IX in lots of different contexts right now. It's been in the news a lot recently. A lot of people a couple years ago thought about this when they thought about athletics and women's sports. And that's not actually how Title IX began. Title IX began as an effort on college campuses specifically to get rid of what was becoming epidemic numbers of sexual assault, sexual discrimination, and gender-based bullying and things like that on campus. Later on, the sports stuff was added. But you probably heard about it this summer with the Larry Nassar case coming out of Michigan State, the Vanderbilt rape case that made a lot of news locally. And you kind of see where universities, even really, really great universities, are really struggling with issues of sexual assault and sexual discrimination on campus. Can you play this? This is a video up in the booth. Hey guys. Let's see if this works. The video is going to show in a minute, and then we're going to talk a little bit more. As that video is getting ready to show, what I'll tell you is there's a couple people on campus that we'll introduce to you later that you can go to if you have questions about Title IX, if you have questions about sexual assault or sexual discrimination on campus. We are two of those people. You've probably met Dr. Jim Thomas already, who is the interim head of student life. You can go to him, Kathy Hargis in risk management. There are a number of people on campus who are there to point you to resources as we go. How are we doing up there? Yes? No? No. He's got a 1 minute. 1 minute.
Title IX is a federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in any federally funded education program or activity. The most common Title IX issue you hear about on college campuses is sexual assault. And it's important to know that you need consent from any sexual partner. But there are many other types of sexual misconduct that you should be aware of. Dating violence. For example, if you've raised your hand to your partner, ask yourself, do you have a question? Is this part of a high five? Are you hailing a cab? If not, put your hand down. People aren't for hitting. Take a deep breath and walk away. Stalking. If you find yourself following someone on campus, ask yourself, am I part of the conga line? Am I a tiger? Am I a federal agent? Am I making a documentary that I have permission to make? If not, turn around and go home. Stalking is not okay. Cyber stalking.
Can we go ahead and stop that just for a second? There's a video that's supposed to be playing along with it that gives a little better context. But at the moment, All right, so this is one of my favorite things, to be in front of 800 people and have the video not work. But let's just say a couple of things about the video, and then hopefully we can get it out to you through student life, and you can take a look at it as you want. Federally mandated law that takes the kind of stuff it was talking about seriously. Stalking on campus, which has been a really big problem. Sexual assault and sexual discrimination on campus, and finding the lines in the middle of those, and defining those terms along the way is really important. So I'm just going to go ahead to the next slide, if possible.
And as he's looking at that, I kind of want to talk a little bit. Title IX is typically seen as just sexual assault, but like Dr. Spivey said, it covers a lot of other things. So we're looking at sexual assault, but also sexual harassment, sexism, stalking, cyber stalking, which we see a lot as well, gender-based bullying, and dating and domestic violence. And typically that last one is not talked about as much, but it's definitely part of Title IX. It's definitely part of something that we want you to be aware of, the importance.
So let's define a couple of terms, because I think this is important as we talk about this. And one of the things that's always bothered me about these kind of trainings is it focuses on what happens if you are the object or the victim of a sexual assault or sexual harassment, and we forget to say some very important things to the perpetrator. So let me say this very clearly. Do not rape, do not sexually assault, do not sexually discriminate. In a community like ours that seeks to build on respect and build a community of consent, I'm going to say that out loud, and I'm going to tell you that this community will not tolerate it, okay? And we want to be a welcome and opening place for those of you who have suffered some of this and who need to come to talk to people about that. I don't want anyone to fear coming to talk to folks about that. So let me say that very, very clear. That those are things we take seriously, and those are things that are not compatible with the community that we want to build here. So let's define some terms. We're going to talk about sexual assault in a minute, but I want to spend a little bit of time talking about consent. Consent, as it would have talked about in the video a little bit, needs to be clear and unambiguous, and I would tell you vocal. In order to have a sexual partner, a sexual relationship with someone, consent has to be clear. I went to a training at the University of Tennessee this summer, and one of the things they said is if a person is too drunk to drive, if you would take their keys away from them, they are not capable of giving consent to a sexual encounter. So let's be clear about that. And there are all kinds of resources on the Title IX website if you have further questions about what consent is and what consent isn't. Secondly, sexual assault is having or attempting to have sexual penetration or sexual contact with another individual without that person's consent. Sexual harassment is any unwelcome advance, request for sexual favors, or other verbal, nonverbal, or physical conduct of a sexual nature. So these are the definitions. And this stuff is difficult to talk about. This stuff is difficult to talk about, especially during Quest Week, when you guys are having so much fun, and everybody looks friendly and kind, and certainly this university is a friendly and kind place. But we are not going to pretend that this stuff cannot happen here. That is what Michigan State has been accused of doing. That is what Vanderbilt was accused of doing. We're not going to do it. And so what all of us on the Title IX team would tell you is if you are sexually assaulted, if you are sexually discriminated against, and I don't care who by, whether it's a fellow student, whether it's a faculty member, whether it's a staff member, we want to talk to you. And we want you to know that you can come to us. We're going to talk about resources that are confidential and resources that are not confidential, but we want you to know that there is help and services for you if that happens.
And just a note on consent, one of the things that I typically look at my line there is it needs to be an enthusiastic yes. So not just a verbal yes, but an enthusiastic yes. There's a great video on YouTube that talks about consent and the idea of like offering somebody a cup of tea. And you guys may have seen that before, and if not, I would say go ahead and Google it because it's really interesting. But you know, if you offer someone a cup of tea and they're like, oh yeah, I really want that, and then they fall asleep on the couch, that doesn't mean you force the tea to them while they're sleeping. And it kind of goes through that whole process of when we are looking at consent, it's not just a line of, okay, I got a verbal yes, so I'm gonna go ahead, or that one yes means it's yes forever. It is an enthusiastic yes every single time. And a note too, just on the harassment piece, a lot of times it's a very clear line to know the difference between like sexual assault and not sexually assaulting. And it's not so much of a clear line to look at harassment, especially in the culture we live in where it seems to be just fairly normal to use different words for the way that people look and to talk about them in certain ways. Again, if you don't know whether this is wanted or not, if you say it and the person is not laughing, if you can tell by their body language that this is not a way that you guys just joke around and hang out, that is sexual harassment. So again, we monitor our behavior, right? But we also need to monitor what's happening to our community and our friends. So we'll talk a little bit more about what it looks like to intervene if you see this happening to somebody else, if you either see a friend who's doing it or you see this happening to the friend. We can talk about what we can do there, but I just wanted to put a little note of, we have to be very clear that this is not just one thing and then everything else goes. Does that make sense? So I want you to know who you can go to for help, and she is so sorry that she can't be here. This is our Title IX coordinator, Kathy Hargis. Her phone number is right here. Where she's located is right here. I want you to know this, kind of keep aware of this. You can look her up online. You can send her an email, you can call her. This is the person that if you were to make a Title IX complaint or if you had a question about Title IX, obviously everybody on the Title IX team, and then she kind of leads it. So she makes sure that everything is getting taken care of with that, and she's great too. So
Yeah, and if you want to take a picture of that screen right now so you know who to go to, that would be a great idea. One of the things as we talk about kind of the blurred lines of especially sexual harassment and sexual discrimination, one thing I would tell you, and this is important to me as a faculty member, if you believe that you are being treated differently, even by a faculty member, even by a professor, because of your gender, that's something that falls under Title IX as well. And the only way administrators, the only way folks know about that is if someone's willing to come forward and talk about that. And that's something to think through as well. These are the other folks to go for help. A member of the Title IX team, Dr. Thomas, who, y'all have met Dr. Thomas, right? He has remarkable posture. You know who I'm talking about? Yeah? Okay, we got nothing there. All right, me, Caitlin Shelter, and her office is in the bottom of the library. My office is on the third floor of Ezel in one of the corners, or you can go to Grace Ann Miller, who works in athletics as well. Your head resident, your RA, a faculty member, a security officer who's around 24/7, feel free to do that. One thing that I think it's really important for you to know, because of the obligations of Title IX, these folks, including your faculty members, are not confidential reporters. They have an obligation under the law, is if there has been a sexual assault that has occurred or reported to them, for them to report it to the Title IX office. So it's important to know that these folks at least are not going to be able to maintain confidentiality along the way. There are some other options as far as anonymous reporting of sexual misconduct, bullying or cyberbullying, drug, alcohol abuse, safety concerns. On the Lipscomb webpage, you'll see this little logo here, this TIPS logo, that gives you a place to anonymously report things that you see. And we're going to talk a little bit about your duty as a witness or a bystander a little bit later. Okay, what happens next? If you report an incident to one of these folks, that begins the Title IX process, and it's not that complicated. But let me just give you an overview of that. The Title IX coordinator can immediately put into place interim measures to keep people safe, and so a no contact order on campus. A change in housing or a class schedule if necessary, security escorts to classes or to the vehicle, and you can also choose to file your own Title IX complaint. And so this is where you have a choice in the matter of how much your involvement you have going forward. Okay? Just because you report to one of these people doesn't mean you're tied into some sort of Title IX complaint along the way. You're going to get to choose whether to file something formally and be involved going forward. But I want to really focus on these interim measures. Once a complaint is filed, it is the Title IX coordinator's job to do everything they can to make you feel safe and help you continue with your education and not let this derail it. And so this no contact order stuff, this change in housing and schedule is a good way to kind of begin that process. And after a complaint is filed, the investigation by the Title IX team starts, and they'll start digging in and talking to folks.
So we want to talk about our on-campus confidential resources. Like we said, that list of people that you can go to who are on the team are not confidential because we are legally obligated to walk you through the process of reporting and see what we can offer you. Our confidential resources, though, are people who do not have to come and report to us, who, if you just kind of want to talk through it and figure out, is this something that I want to talk further or not, and I just need somebody to talk to, these are the people that you can go to. The Counseling Center, Campus Ministry, and the University Health Center. All of these people that you tell if something is going on, they are going to keep that private and confidential. And that we just think that that's really important for you to remember, because I think that that is an important resource for you to know that you have.
Off-campus resources, obviously the Metro Police Department, the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence, the Sexual Assault Center, the Hope Clinic for Women, and also Nashville General Hospital. Nashville General Hospital is important here because if worst case scenario happens and you are the victim of a sexual assault, the Nashville General Hospital is where the rape kits are administered, and there are all kinds of things that resources on what to do if you are the victim of a sexual assault on campus to be able to preserve your ability to move forward criminally against the person that did that. All that's on the Title IX website, and I'd encourage you to look through it and be prepared for that. But these are the resources that the Title IX office works with on each of these situations as they come through.
Okay, so this is a super, super important thing for you to know. Probably one of the most important things that we're going to tell you when it comes to intervention, and something that you should know in being able to help your classmates and your peers, but also to help yourself. We want to talk about the amnesty policy.
So the amnesty policy, Lipscomb University grants immunity from being charged with violations of other institutional policies to any persons who make a good faith report or intervene to support a survival of sexual misconduct. What this means is if you have been out drinking and you are sexually assaulted, when you come forward to report that sexual assault, there is not going to be any disciplinary measures regarding the drinking. Does that make sense? The other policy violations that may have occurred during that period of time, we're going to put those aside and deal with the more prominent, more important issue right away. And this has got everything to do with how we think about consent. This has got everything to do with the fact that we are here to protect and to serve as best we can and to respond to issues of crisis when we can. So this amnesty clause is very, very important, and we want you to understand that. One of the things we hear over and over again is that I was afraid to report because I would get my friends in trouble. I was afraid to report because I was drinking at the time, and I knew I'd violated some other policies as well. And what we're saying is that's not a reason not to report. That's not going to be held against you.
So these are the things that we want you to take away from what we're talking about today. Is that if you see something, say something. I know that is pretty cliche, and you hear that a lot for a lot of different safety issues, but especially for this, if you see that something's off, I want you to say something to somebody who can offer you help. But even if that's your friend, if your friend is in a relationship that you feel like has become controlling, or that person has changed after being with that other individual, those are the signs that you need to start looking for if you want to intervene with them.
Yeah, and we want you to know that you're not alone, to know that even though your experience may be intense and feel very isolating, that you're not alone. We want you to reach out to the Title IX coordinator. We want you to reach out to Kathy. We want you to reach out to us. This is not fun to talk about. This in a lot of ways doesn't make sense during Quest Week because everything is either ridiculously boring or really at a high level of excitement, and there's not much in between. And this is so important. The numbers, especially of women who are sexually assaulted on college campuses, is staggering and terrifying. And we've got to stop that. And the Title IX office can't do it without you.
Okay, so this is our website. Go ahead and take a picture of this or search it online just so that you know everything that we said to you today, especially if you've kind of been sleeping. We want you to be able to refer back to this so you're aware. And then the other thing I wanted to let you know is I have a few resources down here if you want to come up after the session is over or after your next thing to grab. This is a piece of paper that says Bisons React. So this is kind of our help to you to figure out what do you do if you think a friend might be in this situation. So how as a community, and we've been talking about community a lot this week, and you're going to hear community a lot for the rest of the time you're here. So how as a community can we make the college safer? What is our responsibility as a bystander, as someone who's just standing around watching? We do have a responsibility. If you see something, you need to say something, you need to intervene, bring in friends to help you, bring in the authorities if you need to. See, are you safe? Is this a safe time for you to intervene, or is this a dangerous time? If it's going to be dangerous to you, go ahead and step back, find somebody else who can come back with you. But if it is safe, then we're going to go ahead and move on. If you see that somebody's in a dangerous situation, create a distraction. Find a way to intervene so that the victim can get to a safe location. A lot of times what they say, like in bystander intervention and all of that, is the most simple thing to do is if you see something, just go up to the person who is being accosted or harassed or anything and just say to them, hey, are you okay? Would you like to go grab lunch? Would you like to go get coffee? You're focusing on that person, and you're not focusing on the person who's causing the issue. And that's kind of the last piece, is just talk to that victim, talk to that person and say, hey, what can I do to help? So if you see something, say something, and that is super important.
Yeah, so just to wrap up, and just so we're very, very clear, Domestic and dating violence does not have a place on this campus. Sexual assault does not have a place on this campus. Sexual discrimination and sexual and gender-based bullying do not have a place on this campus. We are committed to making sure that is true, and we need your help in doing that. So thank you very much. Have a good rest of the week.